Hello everyone, this is part 29 of What If Naruto Had a Hug That Changed Everything, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe it. Kit, QB said in an attempt to wake the stirring boy, wake up, useless. Naruto continued to stir and mumble incoherent words as he was slowly waking from his slumber. Despite the lack of success to wake him up, QB actually found himself smiling at the boy, evident how he was unbearably pissed minutes ago. Why was he pissed, you ask? Well, consider yourself in QB's fur for a while and think about how you would feel if a reputation that you have personally built for yourself had been utterly obliterated by an act of, dare I say it, selfless kindness. 5 more minutes. No. 10 more, Naruto mumbled before rolling over to lie on his side, facing away from the only thing separating him and waking up. Since QB was in no real hurry to go anywhere, not that he could anyway, he decided to just let Naruto sleep. After all, the young blonde deserved all the rest he could get after what he had been through. From there onward, the great fox simply watched the boy sleep. Who'd have thought that things would have taken such a turn? What freaks me out more than anything though, is that I'm not even mad that I did what I did. After all, the little brat had earned it. To QB's surprise, Naruto began to wake up a little earlier than expected. It took a little bit, but the black-clad Jinchuriki was finally awake and slowly drinking in his surroundings. Where am I? Oh, that's right, I'm in the cage. Naruto's conversation with himself was cut short by a somewhat mocking chuckle. A bit startled by this, the blue-eyed genin shot to his feet and looked around but almost immediately stopped to look at the cage. Now evident how Naruto can be counted as an amazingly non-observant nimbrud, he can also demonstrate unbelievable impulses of ingenuity and foresight. The fact that he noticed that he was on the completely other side of the cage was a perfect example of this. Wait a sec. What the hell's going on? Oh, that's right. Arigato, QB. QB merely closed his eyes at that. Whatever, Gaki. I was just returning a favor. And what have I told you about your meaningless thank yous? At this, Naruto only flashed his irresolute foxy grin and laughed. Afterwards he decided to have a few questions answered. By the way, how long have I been out? Since I replaced the seal. When that happened, not only was Haruno gone from this place, but your body lost its augmentation since I was no longer in control and along with all of its energy. I see. So, where's my body now? Well, since you're currently out cold, your body is resting in the infirmary at your pathetic village, but... Naruto raised an eyebrow, but what? But Konoha has been almost completely desolated. The blonde shinobi launched to his feet in a daze of total shock. What? How? When? Oh, that's right. You knew. Naruto walked over to the cage and nonchalantly leaned his back against it. I sure do. I remember everything that had transpired before my clones disappeared. Ah, I see. So you've learned a greater deal of the cage bushin technique, eh? Indeed, those little buggers can be quite useful in the department of information gathering. Too bad you couldn't really gain anything useful. Hi, I figured it out during my fight with Neji. It proved very useful when he did that whole Spinaroonie thing a jigger. Only downside is the massive headaches. How did you know? QB scoffed, you can't be serious. Your body became mine, remember? When I finally performed the jutsu, my mind was in a constant whirlpool of throbs when it dispersed. It sucked. After that, a brief moment of silence came between the two sentient beings. It was during this silence, however, that Naruto was able to reflect on one very important fact. He was alive. That thought made him smile with genuine serenity. It was a feeling that he wasn't really used to, mainly because he had never experienced such relief in all of his cursed existence, the joy of being truly alive. At that moment, Naruto could recall a saying that he had simply took for granted until the moment that he felt death's embrace. You never know how good you have it until it's gone. For Naruto, and another pink-haired bee of importance, that saying was now worthy of being his new motto. The feeling of death was so empty and silence, as though the darkness itself was breathing flames of decay into your body. Having crossed over to the other side for a time, Naruto had made a conclusion that he would have never thought to even consider until the day he SD. Which is pretty flip and ironic seen as how it already happened. Really isn't that bad. At least, not as bad as I thought of it, he thought to himself. Though his mind was still, and possibly always will be, on the thoughts of death, Naruto began to trail to a certain jade-eyed kunoichi, if he wasn't completely high on crack, divulged and demonstrated her love for him. Love, of all things that he expected to hear from Sakura Haruno, I love you, was definitely last on that list. But it wasn't as though her were trying to deny it. She said it, she actually said that she loved him. She finally apologized and made everything better with a deliberate kiss. To say that Naruto was officially at peace with his soul was an understatement, serious, it was. The blonde kitsune was so serene that he couldn't help but smile and lavish in the alien feeling that welled up inside of him. I love you, he accidentally said out loud. What? Huh. Oh, God no. No, not you. I was talking about Sakura-chan. Oh, you know, I never really understood what drove that female to be such a b. Now that I think of it, I never really understood why you hated her so much. What do you mean hated? I still can't stand that little bee. At this, Naruto's eye twitched. How many times do I have to tell you to stop talking about her like that? What the hell is your problem anyway? My problem. She's the bee who should have grown up a long-ass time ago instead of waiting until a certain someone SD to do it. I can't believe you liked that little whore for so goddamn long. Shut your hole. I love her, she's finally come around and that's that. It'll never last. Oh really? And just what in the hell makes you think that? Huffs. Because, she is a bee. That it. When I wake up, I'm gonna double, no TSLE, no quadruple my serving of ramen today. Gasps. You wouldn't dare. Try me, 'cause you know I would. At this, Kyuubi fell silent in defeat. But in his mind, he declared war on his container. You win this round, Kit. You win this round. By the way, since we're on the subject, why don't you give me an answer to my question? What? What question? Why do you hate Sakura-chan so much? Oh that. Well look at it this way, the author of this story has to express his hatred for her somehow. So why not through me? Kyuubi said with an overly enthusiastic grin on his face. Naruto's own face slowly drooped down to a blank expression when he heard the utter nonsense that the Yuko had just said. Kyuubi. What? You're scarring me. Out of. Meanwhile, at the western sector of Konoha, the Anbu that had previously investigated the ruthlessness of their people had regrouped after the fight for Konoha had SD down. This time, however, there were but 3 of them seen as how the other 2 stayed with Anko. Once regrouped, the scout Anbu of the group delivered the status report. The number of survivors to this travesty has been confirmed, Captain, he said with a hint of depression in his voice. Not able to take any more suspense, the captain, can't remember her damn name, rushed the report. Well. Sigh. We did manage to find one, and only one, but she is in critical condition and her fate is uncertain, the Anbu stated. Name. Unconfirmed. She was unconscious when we found her. Kuso. The sole survivor and she can't even tell us anything, the captain cursed. At this, the Anbu scout hesitated. Well, there was something that she mumbled during her state of unconsciousness, he said. The captain opened her ears and listened. What was it? Uzumaki Naruto. The captain's eyes widened behind her mask. What? The Kyuubi container. What does he have to do with? She cut herself off at mid-sentence. The other 2 Anbu immediately caught wind of what she was implying and grimaced at the thought. My god. You don't think that, in the remote possibility, he could actually be helping that monster? We can't assume anything at this time. But just to be on the safe side, we'll take him to Ribiki when everything blows over, and after Hokage-sama's, the captain said, once again cutting herself off. The other Anbu lowered their heads, but before long, a new order was given. And a very important one at that. Denka-san. Hi, responded the tracker Anbu. You are to find Uzumaki Naruto and keep tabs on him until we can bring him in for questioning. Remain anonymous, is that clear? The captain sternly ordered. Of course, the tracker Anbu nodded before vanishing out of the fray. With silence now looming over the two remaining Anbu, the captain was able to collect on her thoughts for a few moments. Of course they were only plagued by the horrible memories of Konoha's darkest hour 20 years ago. Without realizing it, the captain tightened her fists and sneered behind her mask. Kuro, even after all these years, you haunt us to this day. Evil spawn. At Konoha Hospital, Sakura was patiently awaiting Naruto's awakening as she sat next to his bed and watched him slumber peacefully, a smile embedded upon her features. Evident how she and her team had arrived to a nearly destroyed village, Sakura was able to barely see past that every time she looked at the unconscious Naruto. Once they had arrived to the village to begin with, it was a saddening vision to behold. Fire, smoke, boss and other sights that would surely haunt them for some time. But evident how the urge to help out any and all who needed it, Team 7 and Pakken knew that Naruto had to be treated, so they took the priority of their teammate first. Especially seen as how he saved their asses from doom. Which brings us to where we are now, Konoha Hospital. Without really giving it much thought, Sasuke made his visit rather short. Mind you, it wasn't because he didn't want to see Naruto, it was just the plain and rather obvious fact that Sakura wanted to be alone with him. So he willingly respected this silent wish and left. Naruto, I swear when you wake up, things will be different from now on. I'll make life for you even sweeter. Watch, Sakura thought as she gazed upon Naruto's slumbering form with a blush on her face. Of course, it was at that moment that the door to that room was clicked open. Evident how she didn't necessarily desire any company, Sakura was in no mood to debate the unwanted guest, but when she heard the person's voice she grew rather surprised. Sakura. The jade-eyed female shot her gaze from Naruto and locked eye contact with one Ino Yamanaka, who had just been filled in on what had happened, minus Kuro's rampage. Ino, Sakura said. For some reason, and this was not unnoticed by Sakura, Ino wasn't able to keep delicate eye contact with her friend for very long. Without really giving her time to ask why she wasn't able to do so, Ino filled Sakura in on the big mystery. Sakura, have you heard about Hokage-sama? She asked with an obvious hint of sadness in her voice. With her expression slightly dimming out, Sakura smiled sadly, yeah. Kakashi-sensei told me about it, she responded solemnly. There will be an honoring ceremony later today, once everything has been cleared up, Ino continued before a very brief moment of silence filled the room. Now when I said very brief I meant it. Mainly because Sakura had almost immediately noticed Ino's eyes staring directly at Naruto. And what's with the longing glimmer in her eye, huh? So, Ino, Sakura said almost a little too enthusiastically, do you have other messages for us? Never taking her eyes off of Naruto, Ino took a seat right next to her fellow sleeping blonde on the opposite side of him. No. I was just curious, that's all, she said. Curious about what? Sakura asked while still keeping a close eye on the turquoise-eyed female. Curious as to what happened. When I woke up at the stadium, I had this horrible feeling in my heart. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't feel my legs, I couldn't even think straight. When I saw that neither you nor Naruto were with me, I asked Kakashi-sensei what had happened and he told me that he sent you guys on a mission to look out for Sasuke-kun, Ino said with worry still filling her eyes. And, what happened, Sakura? Naruto was an absolute wreck when I saw him carried off here, the blonde said as she remembered how torn and tattered Naruto was. What happened to you guys? At this, Sakura lowered her head as the near inescapable memories of the tragic death of her beloved flooded the gates of her mind again. Catching this, Ino suddenly grew more and more worried, though she was grateful that both of them were alive. Sakura, come on, what happened? Ino irked on. Well, you see, it's complicated. Sakura struggled to begin as she struggled to make eye contact. Sasuke-kun and I had made it out without much injury at all, but Naruto. Tell me, Ino said a little more forcefully as her tears began to get wet, what happened to him? Unable to look at her friend in the eyes anymore, Sakura averted her gaze down to Naruto. She stuttered a little before a distinct ming sound was heard under them. Naruto, they both said in unison. After a few seconds that felt like an eternity for both girls, Naruto steadily opened his eyes. Once again feeling the well-missed rush of being alive, the blonde genin unwittingly smiled. Not really caring to take in his surroundings, he rose to a sitting position with his smile never waning. So, I'm actually back, he thought. The next thing he realized were two slender arms wrapping around his shoulders. The scent that came with this feeling only made him smile even more. Not only had another A-rank mission been completed, but the girl of his dreams actually confessed her love for him, and now she was at his side on Quay again. To say that Naruto thought that things couldn't get any better would be somewhat of an understatement. Sakura-chan. Oh, Naruto. Thank Kami-sama you're alright. You had us all worried, Sakura said before pulling away. How is everybody? Are they all okay? Where's Sasuke? Naruto asked. At this, Sakura's head lowered. Sasuke-kun, left to get ready, she said. Ready? Ready for what? The blonde genin asked. When he received nothing but silence, Naruto suddenly got the picture, causing his smile to disappear at the remembrance. Oh. Right. The old man, he said. At this, Ino jumped into the fray. What? You knew? She questioned. Hearing that familiar voice, Naruto whirled his head to his other side and saw her. Oi, Ino. How long have you been here? I didn't even notice you, he said in a voice that showed how happy he was to see one of his newly made friends unharmed. Hearing his words, however, Ino crossed her arms and gave Naruto the eye. Quote. That's a joke, right? What do you mean you didn't even notice me? She questioned offensively. Flashing his foxy grin, Naruto answered, "Ne, what do you mean? What do you mean? I just didn't notice you there," he said with his sparkling and surprisingly ignorant boyish charm. Okay. Two things were made plainly obvious to Ino that day. 1. She saw that Naruto had returned to his naturally happy old self. Second, and this was rather depressing, she noticed that his observance had probably vanished as much as his happiness returned. This logic, however, wasn't enough to keep her from growing angry at the fact that Naruto hadn't noticed her. Hell, she didn't even care why she was upset, but she was. Ooh. Ino GSED before shooting to her feet and taking the one-way path to the exit of the room before slamming the door behind her. With Naruto left in confusion, scratching his head, Sakura was actually smiling at this. For some odious reason, she viewed what had just happened to be some sort of rejection. That'll teach the bee to stare at her man. But being who she was, she absolutely had to make sure that if this happened with any one other girl, Naruto would be ready. The blue-eyed boy turning his head to Sakura, "What's with her?" he asked before a pair of soft hands grasped the sides of his head. "Stop talking, and focus on this," Sakura said before pulling him into yet another lingering kiss that simply melted his body into slime. How convenient that it was that exact time that Ino re-entered the room to remind them both of the time the funeral would start. The bleached blonde Kunoichi simply stood at the entrance of the door, staring at her best friend Frenching Naruto. Out of everything she saw today, for some odd reason that sight was making her, damn what's the word? I can't quite put my finger on it. Mad. No. Upset. That's not it either. Well, whatever in the F Ino was feeling, Sakura pulled away from Naruto and started deeply in his eyes. This of course only made Ino crack out office a smile on her face. Hey, Twitch, you love birds, Twitch. Just so you know, Twitch, the funeral is later, Twitch, tonight. Ino informed while struggling deathly hard to sound humble. Oh, why thank you, Ino dear. You can go now, Sakura said in a very obvious, in your face, B type of fashion. Easily catching the blunt end of this attitude, Ino's face was suddenly flushed with red. With only a half of anger of which she was uncertain why she possessed, the blonde female stormed out of the hospital. Any of you good folks out there could tell that Sakura wanted Ino to see her Frenching Naruto. The smirk on her face only proved it. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.